2022, it's going to be a great year, I hope. And it's going to be a year of changes and opportunities, especially around customer experience. So if you're a department leader, a business manager, a project manager, or a customer, you're going to want to know what these trends are and how they'll impact you. Coming up next on ProjectSkillsMentor.com. Let's start by talking about these kinds of customer experience relationships. So we know B2C, business to consumer, has been around forever. And that's essentially when you walk into a store and buy something, that's a business to consumer transaction. But there are two that are really going to explode in 2022. So let's talk about those. The first is something we've seen in Apple. Enterprise to consumer. So essentially, our entire lives are in our phones. This helps the company figure out what to sell us, how to engage with us, what we want, and what to make us want even more. And we're seeing that also with the whole Facebook changing to Meta. This is a bigger play for our intention and our dollars as consumers. And this kind of business knowledge is something project managers have to know because it's going to change the tone, tenor, and the work of projects today. What's the other one? You've already seen it, and it's happening everywhere, but YouTube is the first and foremost for it, and that is the influencer to consumer. Influencers are people who can talk about an area of expertise, but also wrap that around product, services, and other things that they can make available. So let's get into these 7 trends. Trend number 1, customers want more and faster. And no one understands this better than Google. Of course. Google says that there's only microseconds or 2 seconds to get a person's attention, and that is getting shorter and shorter. It's amazing we can actually make a decision in 2 seconds, isn't it? But in this chart, it shows how Google has understood that understanding what we want to know, what we want to do, and what we want to buy is now happening at a speed unlike any other time. And that's partly related to the underlying technology that allows for that kind of speed, but it's also having to do with our changing perception about how fast we can get all the information and the influencers and other things that trigger those kind of buying behaviors. Trend number 2 is technology has turbocharged everything. I'm going to show you this chart. It's a very big focus on things like 5G. So we know that AI is growing, we know that machine learning is growing, but we also understand how these things are beginning to converge together. When computers start to understand better all of our wants and needs, it can push and pull and create influences in ways we're not even aware of. 31% of organizations have already invested in technology like AI to outpace the competition. So here we're going to start to see those that outpace and those that fall behind are going to be based on changing these mindsets and tool sets into customer experience cycles that resonate with customers. So technology is really important. We know that, and we love it. As consumers, we love technology, but there's one downside to it. It's not human. And this is trend 3. Humans are fighting back. Humans want humans to interact with. This is where we're seeing things like the increase of community. So when you're looking at a YouTuber or a blogger or a podcaster you really like, you might join their Facebook community. You might become a member on YouTube, or you might be a Patreon. In all of these situations, consumers are self-electing to join the communities around that person's viewpoints, around their products and services, around their helpful hints and tips. And all of that comes down to this need for community and relationship directly to that influencer. People want to feel understood. They want to feel connected. And part of that is for companies to show empathy to their consumer, to their customer experience. We want to buy from those who don't just ask us to understand them, but take time to understand us as well. This is cornerstone to the concept of empathy. You can't empathize with someone who you don't know, understand, or value. And that's why influencers do this so well. And that's what you're going to see more, this linkage between influencers and companies, leading the way to create this human connection. And the 4th trend we're going to see is curation goes mainstream. Personalization fit for me or for people like me. Curation is essentially the whole concept of Pinterest, right? A Pinterest board is a curated site. People like to feel they fit in, and people need that more than ever with the fact that we've disconnected from the world somewhat in the last 2 years, people want that connection to people like them. Content that's created by creators on YouTube, creators of blogs, and other sources are going to help people feel part of that community. Community-driven response is going to be bigger than ever. In fact, you're going to see, as this chart says, a lot more focus on personalization of the user experience. The customer experience is going to be driven by personalization in the future, and that's going to grow in 2022 as well. To create that kind of personalization, organizations are going to have to connect dots internally in order to make sure that that external view of the world that the customer sees is truly personalized for them. And the fifth trend we're going to see in 2022 is that location doesn't matter. Now, we've already started to see that through the whole pandemic, and it's taken a while for technology to deal with some of the broader issues. But essentially, we're talking about channels. Devices, locations, and the things that tie all technology together will become more agnostic. They won't matter. I lean over and see what my friend is doing on her Android device. I don't want that experience to look different. I don't want to have to figure it out. I want it to be easy peasy lemon squeezy. And that is what this concept is going to do for us in 2022. Agnostic everything. Channels, locations, devices. And as you can see from this chart, the most important thing is going to be relevant, positivity, and human. That's related back to the other point we talked about earlier. Understanding how all these channels work together from a journey-centric perspective is much more important, not just for the sake of the channels, but for the sake of the bottom line and the consistent customer experience. But now let's take a look at the economy. So I call this consumers may be in for a bumpy ride. In this trend, what we're seeing is inflation's gone up and consumer confidence goes down when that happens. We're going to enter a period of retraction. Jobs will retract, spending will retract, and customer confidence will retract. So that makes all those other trends we've talked about more important, because where customers are going to spend, companies are going to have to work harder for every dollar. We need to understand as project leaders, as organizations and department leaders, what we can expect for the next year. And remember, and I think a lot of companies forget this, your employees are consumers. So they might be both worried about their job and worried about their spending potential with all of the things going on in the world, inflation, etc. So you need to create the kinds of organizational structure that both serves your external customers and serves your internal employees, which may also be your customers and certainly will impact your customer service and your customer experience in the end. And related to that, my seventh trend for 2022 is that consumers and companies can both be winners. All of this change in our relationship can only help consumers feel more connected to both their community and to the products and services they do love. But companies have to get it right. They have to invest in the right way, manage their internal processes in the right way, and keep in mind that their employees are also customers. Maybe not customers to them, but certainly customers to someone else. I have a lot more videos on customer experience and how important it is, and I'll leave a link for those and to my blog so you can get lots more detail on the 7 trends for 2022 for customer experience. I'll leave a link for those below. I hope to see you next time on Project Skills Mentor. Thanks, everybody. Bye-bye.